Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Lunch Table Podcast. And in this episode, we're going to give you our review for The Bear Season 2. This is one of our beloved shows. We love this show so much. If you guys want, check in the description down below. We did a Season 1 review way long ago. Dylan, what a beautiful season. I can't wait to get your thoughts. Let's begin.
One word. Delicious.
Yes.
It's so good. I love the first season. Every time I watched it, it brought back so many memories of when I actually was a busboy working in a Chicago cantina, and it just, it's very much like that. It was very relatable. Season 2, they upped the ante so much, and it's coming from a place of rebirth, reconstruction. Everybody's learning new technical skills. And I thought it was so great because in season 1, Carmy was kind of like thrown into this very street level dining eatery, and now it seems like everybody around him is now on his level, right? They're learning all these new high quality skills of the industry, and they're kind of appreciating Carmy more because now they realize what he had to go through all this training, and it's stressful, but at the end of the day they get something out of it, and they start to realize that they have become not only better cooks but better people. But let me get your thoughts on season 2.
Yeah, this season 2 was surprisingly, I think it showcased a lot of character growth, but also we see character growth in a lot of different shows come naturally. But here it's like Carmy's forcing people to learn new skills. And I think that's a beautiful thing because they apply their personal lives to that skill, and it's always cooking. So there's such a beautiful relationship between actually cooking and in a relationship between these people and the restaurants. And it's just like one big family. So it's very, I think, relatable too. And I think if you watch season 1, if you guys are new to The Bear and you watch season 1 and watch season 2 continuously, you'll see that it's the same flavor, no pun intended. And it's no wonder the show has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. This show reminds me a lot of Barry in a sense because they're like 30-minute episodes. Quick to go by, but I think addicting. So yeah, let me get your thoughts on the restaurant, because this whole season was centered around restructuring this restaurant to make it, available to run in the city of Chicago. So let me get your thoughts on just that build up.
Well, I like that they brought up the topic of the pandemic and how it affected a lot of businesses, right? That was those were actually the first people that were impacted by COVID were all the eatery restaurants, right? So I love that they talked about that, and Sydney had to go to these other restaurants and get inspiration. And some of those restaurants actually ended up closing, which I thought was interesting. And yeah, of course, there are a lot of issues with it was called The Beef, and then they renamed it The Bear. So it's like, in a way, like as the restaurant is changing, it's almost like the characters are changing themselves, right? They're rebuilding from the ground up. They're throwing a lot of toxic traits, right? But they're also fixing up the restaurant. It's basically like their new home, right? They want to make this, like they said, it has to work, right? Because it's for them. It's all their dreams combined into this one little eatery, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, there was a lot of character growth, like you said. Big standout for me was Richie. I feel like he definitely stood out as far as in the first scene we see him, he's talking about like purpose, right? What's his purpose? He has no real definable skills, right? And he feels like he's lost among these, talented workers. And to see him come out at the end of the season as like a maitre d' with all these, fine dining qualities, I thought that was amazing.
Oh yeah, I love that episode because each episode is kind of centered around certain, at least a little bit later on, centered around certain characters like Marcus, of course Richie. I love that episode so much because he finally found his calling in a way where it's like he's an older gentleman and there's nowhere really where he can go, and he's kind of ostracized from his own family and then his wife, and then so actually finding a purpose and through a professional manner, something that now he could dive into. I think that's really cathartic, therapeutic, because cooking can be something very therapeutic. And I could see why people just love cooking, because, you know, for whatever, maybe their parents, their mom or something always cook something great. You know, look at Carmy's mom. We'll talk about it a little bit later. She always set up like this huge dinner for holidays. So I love that episode. I want to talk about, I think, some of the cameos too, because this season felt a lot more bigger with the locations that were visited, but also the cameos we received. One of the big ones was directed by Rami Youssef, and I think was episode 4, and it was where Marcus has to go to, what is it, Copenhagen or something, and he is sleeping in a boat, the same thing that Carmy went through. And he sees the actor Will Poulter there. That is amazing, man. He looks great here too. He reminds me a lot of Carmy in a way. But let me get your thoughts on that.
Will Poulter must be getting a fat check at the end of this year with Guardians and now The Bear. Shit, man, and he like muscled up too. He looks really good. In this season. Yeah, it was cool. And well, his name is Lucas in the series, and he was actually, I think, Carmy's like partner too at the restaurant. Yeah, I love that episode too. It was a great showcase. And Rami Youssef, he does a great job of like showcasing like culture and stuff. So I love that we get like different shots of like Copenhagen. Also, I just love the little details that they do where like they'll zoom in on like certain foods or like utensils. So it feels like you're actually like there. Like you're either dining or you're learning, like in the kitchen too. I just love those little micro details, but excuse me. Yeah, Marcus also was a big subplot in this series because his mom was having like health issues too. So, but he was trying to better his skills because I think in the first season he mentioned he was like a McDonald's like food worker. But then he tried to like learn little things about like pastries and donuts. So I thought that was cool. And here he gets a big jump in his culinary education. So that was really cool. Tina as well. And Idra, he was a little bit, hesitant, but I think Tina stepped up and she finally embraced this new way of life and this new way of cooking. And she definitely felt like such a growth as a character, right?
Oh, yeah. I loved her character in this season because in the first season, she was standoffish, pretty annoying. But then she became someone that I think like I grown to love over time. And it's funny because it's the same thing that probably Sydney felt with Tina at first, like standoffish. And now she grew to love her. It was really beautiful. I also love that we see some other people. So let's talk about episode, I believe 6, which should have been an episode 7 because it's the 7 fishes, but instead it's an episode 6. There was a flashback scene and we see a lot of cameos here. So let me get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, this was like a big ensemble cast episode, and I love how they introduced it too because this whole series is like leading. They have like I think like 7 weeks to open up the bear, and this flashback episode said like 200 something weeks before opening, so it was a cool like little reference. But yeah, so it's a Christmas party, and of course we see John Berthel as Mikey the brother, so we get more scenes with him. Also his sister Nat, and we see the whole Berzatto family, and I didn't expect to see her, but Carmy's mom is actually played by none other than Jamie Lee Curtis. And she was so great in this episode. She just felt like so natural. Like she has that like psychotic energy that she brings, right? And it's so natural because the Berzattos are like all kind of crazy in a way. Yeah. So it kind of talks a little bit about like, dysfunctional families too. And big holidays, I think, tend to bring like the worst of us out, right? Especially like preparing like these big dinners for like families that can be very stressful sometimes. And I think a lot of, bad things were brought up at the dinner table by everybody. And there's like a big scene where like Mikey and I think his uncle, played by Bob Odenkirk. Yeah, they have like a standoff too. And he like starts throwing forks at it. Yeah, what'd you think of that whole dinner scene actually?
Yeah, I think a lot of truths in this season came out, specifically when out of anger and spite. And so this for sure, I think when you mix like a dysfunctional family together, the bottle is gonna pop off the cap. And so I was actually really like nervous and I had anxiety as well. I love how the show gets you trapped in there. Like you feel like you're sitting down with them or cooking with some people. And that whole scene, I felt really embarrassed. Actually.
I was sweating. I was like sweating.
Yeah,
every time you picked up the fork, I was like, oh.
Yeah, I don't want John Berthel to be like the Punisher. He's like, no. Yeah, it was, and I must say, I think with all these, amazing, talented actors in the same scene, I think each person was really generous with each other. Whenever they delivered a line or something, it was just something about it that blended really well, and it seemed so natural, and I think that's what immersed you. And then plus the cinematography, like the editing, is perfect because it's not a lot about cooking. All the mom is involved cooking and Carmy's helping and stuff, but it's really about the relationships, and it's like jumping back and back. It's wonderful, that whole scene. And Jamie Lee Curtis, for sure, I think she has not Jamie Lee Curtis herself, but the mom has bipolar or something. So it sucks because we know what happens to John Bernthal's character, Mikey, but now the mom is like pretty dysfunctional, and then plus the father is not in the picture whatsoever. The Bob Odenkirk's character, Uncle Lee, is the stepdad, so you can see why Carmy has so much anxiety. He just wants to escape, and I think that always haunts him.
Yeah, and I think the addition of like the cannolis too was like a nice detail. Like he has trauma, and he kind of like attaches that trauma to like cannolis. Like he said, like he wanted to reclaim that and make it his own into like this new like savory dish. I thought that was so cool how they use food as like a device for like people's traumas or like people's past that they associate with. So I thought that was really cool. Yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis was awesome. She can't get a break during any holiday, apparently, if it's Halloween or Christmas. No, but she was awesome, and she makes another appearance towards the end of the episode where they invite her to the big soft opening of the bear, and she kind of she must have like some mental issues. She's like really hesitant to come in. She has like a lot of baggage, and it was kind of sad, but at the same time I was kind of like disappointed because I was like, well, the first step in healing is to be there, right? So I was like, why don't you just like sit down and just like have a meal with your kids, right? But they must have like so much like bad blood. It must be like very hard to reconnect, right?
I empathize with her. I do. I feel bad for her because I think when you made a big like she did in Christmas, and I think that's what separated a lot of people, rightfully so. I mean, that's horrible what she did. But after that, even in that episode, she felt like no one actually cared about her. So when they all leave, they forget about her. So I could imagine like if she has mental issues and maybe she's kind of stubborn-headed, she won't seek help. So instead, you would think that she'll talk to some friends or family, but apparently she doesn't really think that she has that either. No one to actually talk to. And she doesn't have anything that's therapeutic or cathartic either. She cooked that dinner. I don't know if she's like a brilliant chef, like cooking every day in the household. I just know in that dinner specifically, she cooks like this whole amazing meal for everybody, but that's it. At least with Carmy, he has his source of therapy, and he goes to therapy. He knows how to seek help. Even if it may not work sometimes, she doesn't. So to come back after all of this time, and then plus it's not in like the right place to hash out problems. You're just going to be sitting down, everyone's busy, it's really awkward. It's really heavy to just make an appearance there. And then plus Natalie is pregnant, and she never knew about that. So that, I think, was the final nail in the coffin. Like, oh, okay, everyone has actually moved on without me. I wish, in an ideal world, I wish she could actually go in there and enjoy a meal. But I do understand that it's not the right place to actually begin again. You can't just start and not think about the past and stuff and say you're sorry. And then plus what happened with Mikey's death? What did she do? I think it's really, I don't even know if she's still with Uncle Lee. I don't even, maybe they separated after that day. I have no clue. I think it's a really realistic situation, the way how they approached it. I hope we get to see her make a return for season 3, and also I love Sarah Paulson in this in episode 6 too. I hope that we could see her make a return, maybe help out Carmy in some way, shape or form. that being said, overall, I think the show, it's a brilliant show, a brilliant season. What are your thoughts on Sydney? Because that character, she had a great, I think, maturity throughout this season. Especially, she had a lot of pressure on herself. She had to take on a lot. So what do you think about her character growth in this season?
She's still like in that mindset where she's still a student, right? But excuse me, she has a lot more responsibilities now because, she's, Carmy's second in command, right? And she has to be in charge of not just the menus, but like hiring people, getting a lot of the dishes together, helping train the new cooks. So she has like a lot more responsibility, but I feel like sometimes I feel like she bites off more than she can chew sometimes. And she has moments where like she just can't really handle that amount of stress. And I feel like she needs, I guess, more experience in a way, like in like line cooking in a way. Because I feel like she once she cracks under that pressure, it's hard for her to come back from that. But I thought it was cool in this season. We get to see her dad, and we get to see like how supportive he is, right? Because it's very hard for a lot of cooks and chefs. Like they always talk about like how the restaurant business is like set up for failure, basically. But it was cool to see like her dad, like was really like supporting her, and he really cared about her dream, right? Yeah, I feel like that's with all the characters too. I feel like they all became better cooks in a way and better people. Even people like Richie, who's not a cook, right?
Mm.
They could still learn, right, from this, this business. They can get new skills that they never knew they had, right? And Sydney's kind of like on that path, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. Also, I feel like these characters are affected a lot by outside sources. We kind of talked about that already, but I think one significant person that's included in the cast now is Claire. So Carmy has a new girlfriend, and I think that ending was really devastated. It ended on a kind of sour note, but I think just to keep us waiting, because again, this season 1 I think came out like 10 months ago, so I'm pretty sure 10 months from now we're gonna see season 3. Let's get your thoughts on Claire.
Yeah, so she is the love interest for Carmy, and it's kind of like a balancing act for Carmy, right? It's like he has like two loves in a way. He has Claire, who's his physical love, and then his love for cooking, right? Even if it's like a toxic relationship where like, is his career and his passion kind of like kills him a lot of times, he still has this drive to be better, right? And he also has this curse too, because if like there was like certain scenes where like that his previous chef was like kind of like the ghost of his past, and he kept coming up and telling him how bad he was. So it's a juggling act for Carmy, because he's trying to move on from his past and have a healthy relationship with Claire, but at the same time, it's like he has a lot of responsibilities to the restaurant too, and it's kind of becoming a distraction for him to the point where like he's missing a lot of appointments. He's not there with Sydney for a lot of the times when they need to get stuff done. So it's affecting. It's kind of like Spider-Man 2 in a way, when Peter was trying to balance his social life with his superheroing duties. So that kind of made me think of like this. Like Carmy is trying his best to split himself, but at the end of the day, he has to kind of choose like which. Although I feel like at times he could have been like a little more like communicated with Claire and been like I'm kind of busy at the moment. Can we like set aside time, to do this and this? I guess he doesn't really have those communication skills. But yeah, what do you think of their relationship?
Yeah, he likes to communicate. I mean, it's the restaurant itself. It is very pouring your all into the restaurant can be cathartic. I keep mentioning that word because it sort of is. It's like an escape. But at the same time, too, the restaurant is another beast to tackle. And so it's kind of hard to pin down this beast and pay attention to something so delicate and sincere as a relationship. And so I could kind of see where he's coming from, especially coming through from like a lot of grief and trauma. but I feel like everybody, they kind of lean on somebody, and if they can't, then they'll lean on either each other in the restaurant or the restaurant itself. I feel like Carmy has a hard time to actually lean on other people. I mean, he is like really supportive of people, this and that, but again, he's like the boss there. So who else can he really go to? And so he could go to Jimmy, but Jimmy's always like, oh, you guys are going to mess it up. You better like make money now. So he can't really rely on anybody. So he has Claire. I hope that they could somehow get together. I hope that he comes to a realization. Well, I think he actually came to the realization that he messed up, especially after the voice message that she left. I thought that was so like beautiful that she sent that. And it's really, he has like huge anxiety problems, and the fact that he's locked in that freezer and he can't even go after her and like explain or anything like that. I think it pushed probably him back like through the breaking point. But the fact that everybody else in the restaurant did a wonderful job, I think now he could hopefully say like, okay, let me take it easy. Let's take it easy. So next season, maybe it's about trying to get the word out there, because it seems like it's fine in the restaurant. So everything's good. They got certificates, right? But you need more customers. That was a big concern between Richie and Natalie, that, it's going to be kind of dry. Okay, get more people, but then also try to focus on your personal demons. Try to, if you connect too much to the food and stuff, like what if that place one day burns down or something? Then you're like at a loss completely, right? So the whole point about cooking good and learning these skills is to cook on the go or cook wherever else you are. That's why these people, they're learning like all these things in different countries and shit like that, or different areas. It shouldn't be exactly about the restaurant, even though I know it is. I think the heart is the actual home, and it's kind of toxic in a way, and it's kind of hard, that tug of war, but someone has to win eventually. And I hope it's not devastating.
Yeah, and I thought that was so metaphorical too, that he was kind of stuck in that freezer pantry, because it's like, in a way, it's like he's trapped now by this restaurant. He has like no other way to become, because he's already cut ties with Claire, and now he's got bad blood with Richie now. I mean, perhaps they'll make up in the future, but it seemed like it was like that last fight was like really harsh.
Nice, yeah.
And they said a lot of things that, you can't just like take back, right? So now it seems like his primary focus now is the restaurant, but it's not because of his choice. It's because now he has nobody else to turn to, except maybe like Sydney. So perhaps like it'll become like a toxic relationship now with the restaurant, where like his only focus now, he'll probably lose sleep, probably like go back to like how he was before, like very like anxiety inducing, right? I want to see too, like perhaps if maybe the mom comes back.
I hope so.
And maybe that'll just add like another level of stress to him now. Plus we have like Nat, she's also pregnant now. So that could also affect like her, relationship with the restaurant, because it seemed like she was like a hostess now, or manager. Like everybody now is now tied to this restaurant. It seems like now they need to focus all their efforts on it and make this work, because they have no choice. If this falls, then they're all in debt and they're screwed. So it's like now they have to give 100% of their game just to the bear, right?
I think it's also kind of this curse too, because Richie was completely fine. It looked like he really didn't want to go back to the actual bear. He was fine out there. I actually was thinking like, damn, actually, that'll be really nice if he stayed there. But I think the more tied you are to this place, it takes from you. It's like eating you, and that's the problem. It's consuming. And I don't know. Maybe Richie will go complete schizo. I mean, no, Carmy will go complete schizo and burn it down after all that work.
Sure.
I don't know. Okay. Well, so now seeing season 2, how would you compare it to season 1? What are your final thoughts, and what is your rating?
They're both amazing, to be honest. It's like one of my favorite shows, not just like on Hulu. I think this is one of Hulu's best shows, to be honest, but I think it's like one of those rare art forms of shows. It reminds me a lot of Master of None in the way that like they showcase like, like arts and culture and stuff. It's like one of those rare breeds of series. But yeah, in comparison to season 1, I think they definitely showed not just like Chicago culture, but like other. They showed more of the restaurant industry, right? And I like I said, like they talked a bit about like how the pandemic affected a lot of restaurants too. So now we kind of see like more of the inner workings of other kitchens rather than just the beef or the bear. We get to see like how other cooks take their inspiration, how they run their kitchens. I thought that was a really cool showcase. And the characters, I love them way more in this season. It feels like now they're becoming much more of a family now, and they're listening to each other. As Richie says, we gotta listen. Right. Oh man, there was so many good episodes I could just nip. It feels like every episode, like individually, well, I could just rewatch, right? But as a whole, and the last episode especially, it just came together really nicely. And I love the last episode too, because it felt like you were actually there, like working the kitchen, because it was like there was a lot of like follow through shots, like from the kitchen and then to the dining area. So I think it's a great like masterclass of like cinematography too. But yeah, love this season. Any final thoughts for you?
Oh, what would you rate it?
10 out of 10 for me, man. 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah,
or 5 stars, 5 Michelin stars.
5 stars, right? That's actually good. No, I enjoyed this season a lot. It's a welcome return. Season 1, I remember I wasn't like down to really watch it, but you got me into it. I'm so glad we reviewed that, and then now we're reviewing this after 10 months, and I'm glad to see how far, and how bigger they made it, especially traveling to and I can't wait to see the other cameos for next season. It's hard to compare it, which season was. Honestly, I think this season was probably better, but they're both like, if this season is better, it's better by a small inch, because they're both like on par. They're wonderful. I think this is also a masterclass. For some reason, short form seasons, like episodes, do the best. Like Barry, now this. Like for some reason that just happens. I wonder.
They're really quick, but they're like really good. It's like
they
something
feel long.
about them. Yeah,
they feel like, oh, it just ended. Well, you'll see. Probably we're gonna see more of this in the future. This type of format. Editing everything. I think everybody like that worked on this had ample amount of time to showcase their skill without stress or pressure. And then when they're without stress or pressure, it's better to show the actors under stress and pressure. It's like it's almost like a documentation of something.
There's a lot of love and appreciation.
It
for
is.
This show.
It seems like a passion project. In multiple forms. And especially with the themes too. I enjoyed the season. I bet with you, maybe this is going to win a couple of awards coming soon. For sure, I will give it a 10 out of 10, especially like you just said, and 100% on Rotten Tomatoes too. I think everybody agrees that this show is amazing. And that is our review for The Bear Season 2, now streaming on Hulu. Please check it out, and please like this video, or else I'm going to throw a fork at you. All right?
Put the fork down, Akra.
Yeah. Listen, but you guys aren't. You guys are something, and we love you very much. We appreciate you if you made it to this point in this video. Please check out our other reviews listed down below. Without further ado, Dylan, please take us away.
Yeah, and if you watched season 1, check out our season 1 review of The Bear. That was pretty fun to do as well. Great discussion. Yeah, we do plenty of reviews, guys. We're doing a lot of TV shows. We're still doing Silo from Apple TV Plus. We're doing that right now. We're actually going to do episode 9 right after this. Yeah, we're doing The Idol from HBO Max, or Max as it's called now. So plenty of content, guys. So leave a like. 100% on Zagat rated or something. Wine and spirits, whatever the fuck it's called.
I'll take it.
Right. But thank you guys so much, and until then, thanks for having lunch with us.
See you guys.